it was Super Bowl Sunday, and my brother had just gotten married, and we were driving back from Baltimore to Michigan, and it was snowy, and we were on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and it was slippery, but the game was starting, and I was in a rush, and I drove a little too fast, and before I knew it, the car was sliding out of control, and we spun around, and I don't know, and ended up somehow, we fell off the road, and ended up somehow that the minivan with my family and our children ended up on its side, facing backwards. We were up towards the sky, and everyone was fine. Strollers were thrown from the car, glass was all over the place, but we walked out literally unharmed, unscathed. And when the EMS people came by and picked us up and took care of us, they said that when they saw that we had gone off the road at this part, that they were sure that something terrible had happened, that they wouldn't be seeing people walk out of the car. And then every time we used to drive on the Pennsylvania Turnpike back and forth from Michigan to our family on the East Coast, I would say a bracha, I would say a blessing, because I really felt, and I feel to this day, like time slows down when things like that happen to you. And I felt that literally the hand of God was holding on to me and somehow protected our family and wanted me to do more things, maybe teach Mishnah around the world. I think that this issue is something that's core to a message that Chazal wanted us to understand in the Mishnayot that we're learning in this last chapter of Masechet Berachot. So Chazal tell us, Haro'eh makom shena'asu bo nisim liYisrael, the person who sees a place where there were miracles done to the Jewish people, Omer, he says, Baruch she'asa nisim la'avotenu b'makom hazeh. Blessed is the God who has done miracles to our forefathers in this place. And the Mishnah and the Gemara gives a whole list that we learned in the Mishnah, and I mentioned in my shiur, places in Israel today, where Jewish armies vanquished our enemies and we conquered the land of Israel. We should say a bracha for that. But the Gemara, let me see if I can write. The Gemara, here we are. The Gemara says, Minah ne'mile, how do we know? So the Rashi says, Minah ne'mile, how do we know what? So he says, Hachi garsinan. Hey Gimel, this is the language. Minalan, how do we know? Dimebarchinon anisa. We make a blessing on a nes, meaning on a private nes. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. The Amar Rabbi Yochanan says the pasuk. Vayomer Yitro Baruch Hashem Asher Atzil. This is actually this week's parsha. Yitro said, "Blessed is God that saved Asher Atzil et Amazeh." Blessed is God. Let's see the pasuk. Vayisaper Moshe lechodo. Yitro came to visit his son-in-law, and he said, like, what's going on? Moshe told his father-in-law, "Et kol asher asashem leparo l'mitzrayim." Everything Hashem did to Paro, alo dot Yisrael, about Israel. Et kol tla Hashem mitza'am b'derech vayiseim Hashem, all the travails and difficulties. Vayichad Yitro al kol hatova asher asa Hashem Yisrael. Yitro was overjoyed for all the good that Hashem did to the Jewish people. Asher itzilo miyad mitzrayim, that Hashem saved him from Egypt. Vayomer Yitro, and Yomer Yitro, Baruch Hashem, Asher itziletchem miyad mitzrayim miyad paro. Yitro was overjoyed. He had a religious experience. He saw God in the actions that Moshe talked about God. But Yitro said, Baruch Hashem, thank God. Says the Gemara. Let's go back to the Gemara. It says the Gemara in Berachot. Yitro said, Vayomer Yitro Baruch Hashem, Anisa de Rabbi Mevarchin. And then he says, what about Anisa de Yachid? So it sounds like on a personal lo Mevarchim. And then the Gemara brings a bunch of stories. And the Gemara comes out and says, Anisa de Rabbi Kule Alma Mechai V'Nivruche. On a public miracle, everyone has to make a bracha. I wasn't saved at Shar Tzion when the soldiers were fighting the legions of Jordan. Nonetheless, it's a public miracle. Anisa de Yachid, on a personal miracle, Ihu chayav livruche. He must make a bracha. Do we see that? I think that's one of the ethics of these Mishnayot in general. Do we see the hand of God in our lives? Do we see Yad Hashem and the things that happen to us, even not the great miracles? I want to share with you that just there's a Tosefta of this, just a beautiful, beautiful idea to think about. The Tosefta says the following. He says, when Ben Zoma, when he saw the multitudes in Har HaBayit, Amar, you said a bracha. Baruch Misha Barat Eli L'Shamshein. He said, blessed God who created all these people to serve me. What do you mean to serve me? Kama yaga Adam Arbishon. How much did Adam, the first man, have to toil? Velotam the gama achat. He didn't taste one thing. Achazara. He had to plant, v'charash, and plow, v'katzar, and reap, v'imer, v'dash, v'zara. And he had to winnow and do all the, and barar, and sort, v'tachan, and grind the grain, v'hirkid, v'lash, v'afa. And then he had to knead the dough and bake, v'achar kach achal. And then he could eat. I get up in the morning, and I find all these before me. So God created all these people in order to serve me. It's a fascinating thing. We think about it. You got up in the morning, right? Think about how many systems work in the modern world today for us to be clothed and I have a warm house and there's electricity going on and there's a faucet and water and I go downstairs and there's food in the refrigerator. Think about we have supply chain problems. God forbid, I can't buy my camping tent today and it comes in 2 hours. But think about all the amazing systems in place in order to allow us to function in the world today. And this is something I think that Chazal wanted to communicate to us, right? You have to say, Baruch she'asa nisim. You say a bracha b'shem u'machut, as we said. Do we see God's role in the incredible blessings in our lives all the time? Sometimes I feel like we're afraid to, we don't want to make a bracha levatala. We don't want to say God's name in vain. So we don't say extra brachot. But then we're missing that element of do I experience HaKadosh Baruch Hu in my lives all the time? Not just on the days of miracles that God saves me, God forbid, from terrible tragedy. But on the day that I get up, I can make an incredible cup of coffee with a glass made in China and a coffee grown somewhere in South America and shipped to Israel and roasted, and it's incredibly delicious drink. Do I appreciate God in that cup of coffee as well? Make it a great day.